everyone, welcome back to another episode of In the Kitchen with Sandy. I'm so glad to have you here with me, and I am so excited to share with you my recipe for a Salisbury steak type meatball. These are amazing. I've shared a few recipes for you on some earlier videos, earlier in my chef career. Different kinds of meatballs. I had spaghetti meatballs, and I'm not even sure what the other kind of meatballs I made. I made some kind of meatballs, but meatballs, you can make them any way you want to make them. You can throw anything into them and make them fabulous. But these are my Salisbury steak meatballs, and what's different about these is I'm doing like a low carb version of this. Now, don't click off of this and say, hell no, I don't want no low carb stuff, or it ain't gonna taste good. This is amazing. Depending on what you serve it over is what's gonna, control your carb intake for this. But I want you to make this, whether you serve it over noodles or you serve it over like cauliflower mashed potatoes. Make this. You're gonna love this, I promise you. Very hearty, very comforting food. So what we're gonna do today is I've got some ground pork in here, and I've got some ground chuck, and I have some eggs. In this mixture here, I have some seasoned salt, I have some garlic salt, some onion powder, some onion flakes, and some pepper. We're not going to use any additional salt because there's salt in here, and plus we're going to use beef stock that's going to go in our brown gravy. And the reason that I'm using the onion flakes opposed to chopped onions is because chopped onions has a little bit more carb content to them than these flakes right here do. And I like to cook with these flakes anyway because they add an abundance of flavor. They have more of onion flavor than the regular onions do. Go figure. And then we're also going to use some almond flour. This is going to act as a binding agent. And I've got some Worcestershire sauce, and I've got lots of beef stock here. And I topped it off with a little bit of water. And I've got some fresh garlic here and a couple beef cubes. Now, I might have to pull out another beef cube, 3, depending on, because I want my stock to be nice and rich in flavor. And that's why we're using butter. I said it's a lower carb dish. I didn't say it's a lower fat dish. Big difference, but it's gonna be amazing. I promise you. So let's go ahead and get started here. In my bowl, I've got my meat, as we already spoke about. I'm going to add my eggs here, and then I want you to take your little finger, doesn't matter which one, and just stir this around, because we're going to mix this together really well, because we're going to add some to our meatball mixture, and we're also going to add some to our beef stock that we're going to make to when we pull our brown gravy together. So just give it a nice little stir. Yeah, I do want you to combine it pretty well, because you want a combination of those mixed flavors in both. But this is so delicious. Pardon my dog, she's thirsty. And this looks like a lot, but you got a lot of meat there. You have a lot of meat that you're seasoning. You can go ahead and throw your garlic in there. I heard someone once say, I mince my garlic. Well, I always mince my garlic. The majority of the time I mince it because it brings out more flavor. And you're going to put just a little bit of your Worcestershire sauce, and we're going to put the remaining of that inside our beef gravy. But back to the garlic and just a couple spoons of this. I'll let you know exactly what I'm using here on the recipe. This is, like I said, it's going to act as a binder. You need something to hold them meatballs together, and I want you to go in with your hands. You have to have clean hands. Now, if you just come back from scooping the cat box, petting the dog, or out in the yard doing whatever, you need to wash your hands before you do this, because you're going to add a whole different kind of flavor that we don't want in our meatballs. I'm going to continue mixing this together, and then I'm going to start rolling these up. Up my last couple meatballs. I just wanted to show you the technique that I use in case you've never made meatballs before, but I'm sure you have. What you do is you take the size that you want to make your meatballs, and you just kind of roll it and roll it and roll it, and it'll in the palms of your hand there, and see how it just goes around, and it makes the absolute perfect meatball. And you want to make sure that they're all uniform in size, all about the same size. I've got probably about 35 meatballs here. And we'll just discard that a little bit. I don't want that. What we're going to do is go over to the stove and we're going to get these started on in the frying pan. I'm going to give you a little tip. Put a baking sheet underneath your foil, because I laid mine out on foil. Put a baking sheet underneath there. To transfer this foil from the table to the stove was challenging. I almost lost all my balls to the floor, and it would have been a mess. I'm not adding any oil to my pan because the meat is going to render fat off of it. So as they fry, then it's going to render fat. So don't add any extra oil. We're going to drain it off anyway. But what we're going to do is just brown them on all sides, and then we're going to remove them. We're going to take them out. We're going to put them on a clean plate, and then we're going to start with our gravy, with our brown gravy. They're not going to be cooked all the way, so don't be snacking them. Maybe you get a bellyache. Oh, and look how beautiful and golden brown my meatballs are. Now, like I said, they're not cooked all the way through, so don't snack them. And they rendered a lot of grease, so I poured most of the grease out, and I left a good tablespoon in there. And look at all the good stuff. Don't scrape that out. Don't you dare scrape that out. I will come to your house. Don't scrape it. That's the good stuff. So what we're going to do now is I'm letting my pan come back up to temperature because I had to scrape that out. I'm just going to put just a couple little spoons of the almond flour in here. And what this is going to do is this is going to act as a thickener. And I'm just going to stir that around. Go ahead and add your butter. Helps to add your butter too. Don't forget your butter. And then you got to find your wooden spoon. What'd I do with my wooden spoon? Excuse me. And then just go ahead and we're going to wait for this to melt. I may throw a little bit more almond flour in there. Just to... because I don't want it to be really thick, but I want it to be more of a gravy consistency. And that's what the almond flour is for. It's going to help thicken that. Normally, when you thicken for gravy, you use regular flour. And again, this is the almond flour, and it has a lot less of the carbs. And again, don't let that scare you because I said low carb. You need to make this. Depending on how thick you want your gravy is how much of the almond flour you use. I'm going to use a little bit more because I want mine to be a little bit thick. Not too thick, but a little thick. And you just want to cook it until it gets that nice brown color. Just takes a minute. It's kind of like making your breakfast gravy, if that's all. And it's going to thicken anyway once you put your meatballs back in because, you know, the consistency of those is going to add thickness as well. You can go ahead and throw your remaining spices in there. And remember, we're not using any extra salt because our beef stock has salt in it. That's why they call it chicken stock. Oh my goodness, it's smelling so good up in here. And go ahead and start pouring your, see, it's thickening already. Go ahead and pour your beef stock in there. Now you want your meatballs to be nice and covered. We're going to use all that, no worries. I'm just kind of making sure there's no lumps. But like I was saying, you want every one of your meatballs to be submerged in that delicious brown gravy. And then we're going to add our beef cubes. Because to me, chicken stock or beef stock that you buy in the store, I mean, it just has a little bit of beefy flavor. When I cook, if I'm cooking something that's beef or chicken, that stuff better tastes like beef or chicken, not some watered down stuff. That's why I always add the cubes along with the beef stock, because I like a robust, really pungent flavor of what I'm cooking. So we're just going to stir that around. You don't have to wait for your little cubes to melt. And then you're going to throw in your Worcestershire sauce. And that is it, my friend. Okay, my meatballs are done. I placed them back in there and I cooked them for about 15 minutes in the broth. And as you can see, they are just the way I like them. I want them to be a little, look at the broth there. It's gravy-like, but it's not too thick. It's perfect, and it will thicken as the meatballs cool. I didn't really want mine really super thick, so I'm just going to pour some right in the bowl there. And if you really wanted to, if you make this recipe and you wanted to take your meatballs out and cook you some noodles in that, that's perfectly fine. Absolutely perfectly fine. Look at that, how beautiful those are. Nice and golden brown. And then you just take a little bit of parsley for color and sprinkle right on top. Look how pretty those are. And it smells phenomenal in my house. Phenomenal. And then you know I gotta try a bite of these. And they're hot. And you know how I know they're hot? One, they're steaming, and two, the bowl's burning my hand. Mmm. They're hot, but they're amazing. Mmm. So good. So good. You gotta try them. Mmm. Make sure you give me a thumbs up, subscribe, like my video, like all my videos, because they're all amazing. Mmm. Hot. I appreciate you watching, and be sure to subscribe. I know I said that, but subscribe, and I'll see you next time.